Let me say, I've walked through the halls of many places with firefighters in my time. I still remember in my race in the United States Senate back in 2004, where I had somebody who was anti the agenda of the firefighters, a guy by the name of Pete Coors, who was running against me for the U.S. Senate. And it was the firefighters, some of whom are here today, led by Randy Atkinson in Colorado and the 11 members who are here from Colorado, who helped me win that election when people said that I could not win in 2004. And so to Randy Atkinson and to all the Colorado members who are here, please give them a round of applause because they helped me a great deal. Now, as a participant of our political system, it is interesting for me to watch what happens in this country as things change. I was Attorney General, yes, of my state for 6 years and had the proud role as Attorney General to being the chief law enforcement officer of my state and working with the 14,000 peace officers of Colorado at that time. But I also remember the great fights that many of our firefighters took on, including those firefighters who fought and died at Storm King Mountain outside of Glenwood Spring back in the 1990s. And I think to what happened in 9/11, when so many of our wonderful brothers and sisters who died in those Twin Towers at 9/11. When I think about those who were the first responders from the fire station, which Harold and I visited with the President a few weeks ago, who were the first responders there at the Pentagon at 9/11. It was in those days where it seemed like firefighters and law enforcement officers were on the highest pedestal of our nation. It was then when it seemed like the cloak of patriotism of this country said, yes, our first responders are people that we need to protect, that we need to invest in because they put their lives on the line every day. And yet you fast forward from those days until these times in 2012, where you have places like Wisconsin and so many other places that are basically trying to tear apart whatever protections you have for your life and your livelihood. And that's why, as Harold was saying today, what you're doing here by raising your voices high, doesn't matter whether they're Republicans or whether they're Democrats, but it's important that people, even in these days of 2012, are walking their talk in terms of standing up for the professional firefighters of America, and that's what you're doing here in Washington, D.C. today in our nation's capital. So you're going to make sure that that happens and that people hear you loud and clear in the halls of Congress and all across America, right? For us in the Department of Interior, we have a role that we play with all of you. We have about 3,500 professional firefighters that we employ with our firefighting efforts as we fight wildfires in wildland areas across the country, protect some 500,000 acres of America's wildland areas. We have about 7,000 additional seasonals that come on board when we are in the middle of the summer and the middle of the highest of the firefighting times, and about 9,000 fires a year that are fought every year. Now, I think about our employees and how they work so hard to make sure that they are protecting the lands and the people and the property that is so important to all of us. And also know that just like the rest of you who are here, just like all of you who are here at the IAFF, that they put their lives on the line as well. And so I said, I remember what happened in Glenwood Springs when we had more than a dozen of our firefighters who were killed there on that year. But I also remember just in the last year, in 2011, that we had a total of 13 federal firefighters who also gave their lives, 13 federal and state wildlife firefighters who gave their lives. And it included 2 people from my staff, 2 people who work in the Department of Interior, Dejan Classy of the BLM and the BIA, and Caleb Ham with the Bureau of Land Management. So we know firsthand how important it is that you have the tools to do your work and that we as a nation are protecting your lives and your livelihood. Now, in this time in Washington, D.C., it seems like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. you hear the political rhetoric that has so surrounded this town. The last week I was in a number of different places in Nevada and in New Mexico and Oklahoma with the president. And one of the issues that we were addressing there had to do with the issue of gas prices and oil and gas. So what I'd like to do is to take the occasion of a few minutes, if I may, Harold, just to talk a little bit about the energy effort that we have underway in this nation. Because you too, as you stand up for the firefighting professionals, as you stand up for the union and the great work that it has done, you also worry about these issues. And I know also that there are other people who you talk to who are worried about what's happening with high gas prices and with energy. So let me just give you a few of the top lines and some of the efforts that we have had going on under the leadership of President Obama over the last 3 years. And I have the important role of being one of the key players in the President's energy team as I deal with the oil and gas resources of America from the sea to the land. So as I oversee about 700 million acres of the mineral and oil and gas development of the United States onshore, and billions of acres in the offshore in the Gulf of Mexico and the Arctic and the Pacific and the Atlantic, what we have tried to do is to implement the governor's direction from day one. And that direction from the President of the United States to me and to his energy team has been that we move forward with a strategy and a plan that will get the United States to a point of energy independence and energy security, where we can free ourselves of the shackles which have essentially had this nation in their grip since the time of Richard Nixon and the formation of OPEC, where we can free ourselves from the last 12 oil and price gas shocks that occur every time that there is some instability in the world, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, or when there are other kinds of instabilities like happened in 2008 with the economic disruptions that occurred with the huge demands that came on board. So the plan which President Obama and Vice President Biden and his team have been pursuing is a plan that will get us to that energy future. And it's in that context that we speak about an all of the above energy program. And as we implement the all of the above energy program, we know that there is no silver bullet to the high price today of gas prices, that nobody can wave a magic wand and get us down to $2.50 a gallon or whatever that magic number might be that people pull out of their political black box. The reality is that the price of oil is set on a global economic market. And so what we're able to do to influence the price of oil through production and a number of other things is not going to bring the price of gas down, because there is no silver bullet to doing so. But what is also equally true is that those who have tried before have essentially failed to move forward with the strategy that President Obama is implementing now. Sure, it was tried by President Carter. Much of what he started doing on renewable energy was then dismantled by what happened in the years of Ronald Reagan. And then through the 80s and the 90s, we went from the point where in the 1970s we were importing 30% of our oil in the 70s to the point where we were importing 70% of our oil. Well, fast forward to today and the work that we have done in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, we have seen domestic oil production under President Obama be at an all-time high in the last 8 years. So domestic oil production is now at an all-time high. We have domestic gas production, which is also nationally at an all-time high. And imports of foreign oil, which is so important to the energy security of the United States, is the lowest that it has been in 16 years. When I came to the United States Senate, when I would meet with the professional firefighters who would come and see me, Harold, Randy, and the group from Colorado, in those days we would talk about the fact that we are importing 60% of our oil from foreign countries. But when this president took office, it was almost 60%. Today, we're only importing 45% of our oil from foreign countries, and the trends and directions are all downward. So we are getting a grasp of our energy security. Now, how are we doing this? How are we taking that dependence of oil from foreign countries and moving it to the independence of energy security for our country? We're doing it in a number of different ways. First, We are producing more, as I just said, both on our public lands, on the seas, in the seas of the United States, as well as on private lands. We are doing a lot more in terms of moving forward with biofuels and moving forward with the first nuclear plant that has been authorized in more than 30 years. And we're moving forward with the harnessing of the power of the sun and the power of the wind, and moving forward with advanced technologies for vehicles as well. So we're making progress. We are making progress, and we're proud of the progress that we are making. But at the end of the day, it is going to be important for us to stay on this strategy. We can't have a program and a strategy that just starts and then stops every 4 years. We need to move forward in a way so that we're able to continue to implement the programs that the President has directed his cabinet and this nation to move forward with. Now, maybe just talk a little bit about how I see what those highlights have been. First, I've spoken about oil and gas. Yes, it's important that we produce more, that we drill in places like in the Gulf of Mexico, where we have leased out millions and millions of acres to oil and gas companies, as well as on the onshore. We're also moving forward and exploring in areas where people had said that maybe we ought not to explore. We move forward with the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska, where we'll be seeing some of the first development coming on board in that part of the world. And we're looking at the possibility of moving forward with exploration in the Arctic seas of the United States of America, up in the Chukchi and the Beaufort in the north of Alaska. So oil and gas are certainly a key part of what we are doing. But in addition to that, a second leg of our energy strategy is what we do with renewable energy for our nation. You know, for a long time, people might have said that we were crazy because we were trying to chase and catch the sun. Well, having been with the President in Boulder City, Nevada last week, and having visited on 2 different occasions other power plants that we now are standing up in the southwestern, in Nevada itself, we know that we are going to be able to catch enough sun to be able to power hundreds of thousands of homes. In fact, just in my department alone, by the end of 2012, we will have permitted enough solar power plants, geothermal plants, and wind power plants to be able to provide the electricity for almost 3 million homes in America. So we know that we can do a lot more with renewable energy in the area of solar, in the area of wind, and in the area of geothermal. But it doesn't stop there. Secretary Vilsack and his efforts, and Secretary Chu and their efforts in terms of biofuels, we're moving fast forward in developing the next generation of biofuel technology, including 4 commercial-scale biorefineries, which are now coming online. So we're moving forward with biofuels as well. But perhaps a story that has not received as much attention as it should is what this President, on his own, without the Congress acting and saying that anybody had to do this President on his own put together a deal which involved the auto industry, which involved the unions, which involved the companies, that has saved hundreds of thousands of auto jobs here in America. And not only did the auto industry get saved here in the United States, and the lives and the livelihoods of all of those workers who work in the auto industry in lots of places around this country, but in addition to that, we move forward with a new world of fuel efficiency. And so the vehicles that are now being produced, which have really saved the auto industry in this country, are now much more fuel efficient than vehicles have ever been in these United States. In our time, we can see in the near future where under the agreements that have been reached with the auto industry and with the workers, we will end up being able to drive vehicles that on average will make 55.5 miles per gallon of gasoline. Now, when you are driving a vehicle that can make that kind of mileage, you know that we're going to be able to cut down our dependence on foreign oil from where we are down to a great amount. So we are producing more, but we also are producing more fuel and energy from different sources. And we also have set about on a program that will mean that the United States of America uses a lot less fuel in the future. So we are on the right track, and no matter what you might hear from the political pundits and opposition out there about how it is that we aren't doing enough, the only way that we're going to deal with this current crisis that we're facing is by making sure that we stay on the long-term strategy which the President has outlined. Let me just conclude, Harold, and to all of the members of the steering committee and all of you who are here. I know how hard it is to come to this town from all over this country. I know there are some 200 of you who came from places like Washington and Oregon and California and now in the West Coast. And I know over there it's still pretty early in the morning. You know, you probably, you started your meetings here maybe at 8 o'clock and it was like 5 o'clock over there in the morning. But you're here because you believe. You believe in the cause that the IAF, the International Association of Firefighters, has stood for a very long time. And that is that the work that you do is work that is so important for the American people. You are oftentimes the first responders who are there at the site. You walk into buildings many times not knowing whether you're going to walk out because of something unexpected in there. In fact, every time you walk into one of those places, into one of those situations, you don't know what's going to happen. You leave your homes early in the morning or late at night. You work the 24-hour shifts. Sometimes you just go and go and go. And you go and go and go because you care about other people. You care about being servants of the public because that's what you do as professional firefighters. You are willing to put your life on the line so that people in this America can live in freedom and live in security. Now I know, as Harold was saying, there's a great debate underway in this nation about the role of government, what it is that government should be doing, how much should they be investing in firefighters and in police officers, how many should we be cutting is most of the conversation that's going on at the state levels. But we need to remind people that our America, our United States, is strong because of people like you. Some of you, I know, have been to Iraq and Afghanistan, as I have been several times in the last several years when I was in the United States Senate. And I can tell you that one of their greatest challenges in those countries is that they don't have governments that function very well. They need governments that function well to be able to serve the people. And that's what the servants of the people do. That's what you do as firefighters. You allow the people of America to live in peace and security, and to know that when something goes horribly wrong in their homes, that there's going to be somebody who knows what they are doing, who's going to be able to come in and to help out. And so, as people around this country in the months ahead take on the position that somehow government is a bad thing, that somehow we ought to take these sharp knives and start getting rid of firefighters and start getting rid of police officers and start getting rid of so many of the other services that are so important to our country. We need to remind them that the United States of America stands strong and it stands proud because of the great work that the firefighters and law enforcement of America do for our country. Thank you all very much.